Welcome to IVF This, episode 23, Managing Opinions. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. I'm a mother to two beautiful and feral boys. I'm married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, beautiful people. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever or whenever you're listening to this. I'm just going to get straight into today's topic because it is one of the most talked about areas of suffering that so many of us have experienced or continue to experience, and that is the things that people say to us. And what I love so much about this topic is that it's not specific to infertility. I mean, that's the context with which we will be discussing it, but this could literally be anything that is said to us about us from bosses, coworkers, friends, family, anything. And I want to level set expectations of this episode right out of the gate. When I go through these examples, I want it known that I am not debating or will never debate the appropriateness or inappropriateness of the comments or questions. It's not up for debate. Women in so many respects bear the social burden and responsibility of infertility. That is not to say that men don't have a very unique infertility experience, because they absolutely do. But most men do not experience the same type of invasive questioning or invasive commenting that women experience. Now, men do get some of this. I remember during our first few years of infertility, a family friend of my husband's family member said, "So when are you going to do your manly duty and get that girl pregnant?" And I know another couple where a family member said to the husband or to the partner, "You must not be doing it right. Do you want me to show you how?" Right? Dickish and obnoxious, to be sure. You're never going to hear me defend these comments. However, for so many of us, we internalize these comments and use them against ourselves, whether it's to blame ourselves for what we're experiencing or what we perceive as something we're not doing. Or we get super ragey, hurt, or offended, and then stew in that for a long time. And those two things are what I want to address today. I'm going to go through some of the usual comments, questions. This is by no means a comprehensive list. And then I'm going to kind of break them down at the end. Let the record reflect, we cannot change people. We cannot get people to stop making dumbass comments or asking stupid ass questions. We just can't. We can educate and advocate, absolutely. And there are a lot of us in this community that do that. But at the end of the day, we have to decide how we want to show up when people do and say things like what we're about to talk about. The first nosy ass question, well, all of these things I'm going to talk about have a nosy ass element to it, but it's usually one of the first things that we hear whenever we meet someone or talk to someone that we haven't talked to in a while. And it's the dreaded, "So are you going to have kids?" Or if you already have children, "So are you going to have any more?" We can all agree that for whomever is asking the question, it is none of their damn business when, if, or how many children you decide to have. None. Zero. Zilch. It does not impact them at all. And what is also true, if we were to share that we're trying for children, maybe you have one or more or whatever, the number doesn't matter at all. They might look aghast and ask, "Oh, why?" I get this a lot when I talk about us going through another IVF cycle, even though we have two children, as if it's some personal affront to the individual, how many children we have. And there might be some measure of what is not enough children or too many. Spoiler alert, there's no such measure because it's all based on your personal preference. So even if you told a mother of 4 that you're only going to have 2 children, she might think that that's not enough. But if you had in front of you a mother of 2 children and you said you want more and you already have 3, she might think it's too much, right? Because it's entirely based on the person that you're talking to, what their preferences, bias, all of those things. It has to do with them, nothing to do with you. There is no shortage of asinine and inappropriate BS that people will say to women who are trying to conceive. It's like the moment that little tidbit about a person is shared, then all of a sudden, well, my great Aunt Martha swears she got pregnant so fast because she ate 2 bananas a day and hoisted her legs for 48 hours after sex. Or my best friend's twin sister's cousin said, if you try this vitamin supplement, mystical healing potion that consists of rabbit piss and Jolly Ranchers, then it can help you get pregnant, right? And this speaks to one of the first opinions that all of us hear or have heard a million times, and that is, well, have you tried? Ugh. It is such an obnoxious statement. The amount of unsolicited advice that is doled out in any situation, not just when you're trying to conceive or experiencing infertility, but any situation, is truly kind of mind-boggling, right? No shortage of serums, sex positions, legs or hips raised durations, food, vitamins, or other stuff that is touted to be the quote-unquote cure for infertility. Any and all opinions around how to make a baby tend to start with the, have you tried? Another common comment is, just relax. Thank you so much for that. That must be the missing link to my infertility struggle. I just need to relax. Super helpful. Thanks so much for being a D-bag. I would bet money that every woman that has ever tried to get pregnant or has voiced a desire to get pregnant and maybe has come up for a few months without any success, the words just relax have exited at least one person that person knows, right? That anytime it is known that maybe you've been trying for a couple of months, you're starting to experience that growing frustration, just relax will exit the lips of anyone around that woman. I know for me, I was working in a hospital. This was around, December-ish of 2012, maybe November. So we've been trying for about 6 or 7 months, and I was starting to grow in frustration. And someone that I absolutely adored, that I work with, she was hilarious. She was such a fun individual. She had a child when she was 18, and now she was in her early to mid 40s. And without even looking up from her food, like just kind of casually listening to what I was venting about or what I was expressing my frustration, the words just relax came out of her mouth, right? That is how ingrained a response it is for other people. Another one is, you're so young, you have plenty of time. And that one, it's a little insidious, right? That in many ways, it kind of reminds us that we have a ticking clock. And that there is a kind of an expiration date on fertility. And the more and more I go through these, the more I remember from my own journey, people pushing adoption as an alternative, people asking, whose fault is it? Remember, I just talked about the social burden of infertility being on women, as if there is a fault to infertility. Drives me nuts. Or people telling you that it's a sign that you're not supposed to be a parent. Wow. That one still, I have no words, and I'm actually a very talkative person, as you've probably known. But when someone says that, I have no words to describe. Like, why the hell would you say that? That's the most eloquent I can make that response. Absolutely no debate that these are inconsiderate, insensitive, some crude, often judgmental questions or comments that all of us have experienced and continue to experience, right? No debating that. But let's get to the good stuff. We've established these questions are intrusive, obnoxious, inconsiderate, all the things. We know this. But why are they so impactful for us? Typically, I won't say universally, but typically, what happens is we do one of two things. Someone says something to us and we believe them, which in turn makes us question what we're doing, which creates pain for us. Or we think they shouldn't have asked that or they shouldn't have said that, which also creates pain for us. So let me give you a couple of examples from recent clients that I've had. The first one is an example of the have you tried question. One of my clients was talking with a family member who was well aware of their infertility journey and that they were about to start IVF. The family member said something in the vein of, have you tried balancing your hormones to achieve a quote unquote natural pregnancy? This is a small tangent, so bear with me. I don't like to use the term natural pregnancy. That is my preference. I understand that that is not the preference of anyone, but let me make my case. I think it only serves to mystify the IVF or fertility treatment process. And I think it also has a built-in negative connotation because the assumption that infertility and fertility treatments are somehow unnatural. But we don't say that about other treatment modalities like chemotherapy or blood pressure medication or anything like that. I prefer to use the term spontaneous pregnancy. That's just me. Do with that what you will, but fight the power. Okay, so back to the story. This family member asked my client if she had tried balancing her hormones, I think specifically around her diet, in order to conceive. This sent my client into a tailspin, her words. She told me that she left the family gathering utterly devastated and was a wreck for the rest of the day and into the next. Okay, so let's take that question she was asked. Have you tried balancing your hormones through diet? Nosy? Yeah, kind of. Insensitive? Probably. But the devastation is what I was interested in. So this is where so much of my work comes in because of the think, feel, act cycle that no one really tells us about, but that is what is happening. Her family member asked her a question. Her family member said words. Then it was my client's thoughts about the question that were things like, no, I haven't. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I've messed up. Maybe I'm not doing enough to get pregnant. And just so you know, when you're asking yourselves, maybe I'm, or some sort of vague question like that, it's kind of our brain's way of softening the real thought because the real thought's a little bit more painful. So the actual thoughts were, I should have, I'm doing it wrong, I've messed up, and I'm not doing enough to get pregnant. Those thoughts were what were so utterly devastating for her. Wasn't the words her family member said. It was what she made those words mean about her and her journey. She made it mean that she was not doing enough, that she was not working hard enough to become a mom. When she thought that, I'm not doing enough, that is what created the feeling of devastation. And from that feeling, she started dwelling and ruminating about all the things that she had done or not done and comparing them to this pie in the sky, quote unquote, enoughness that doesn't actually exist because there's no way to quantify what is enough. It's literally some BS that our brain offers us, but serves no purpose at all. So she was judging herself for those choices. She was beating the crap out of herself. Then because of that, she poured herself a few glasses of wine and then continued to shit on herself about how she wasn't making good choices and on and on. She told me she stuffed her face with all the bread and pasta that wasn't nailed down, and then the cycle of shitting on herself just continued. All of this resulted in her, in essence, proving to herself that she wasn't doing enough. Which of course is a pile of crap because when we look at all of the things that she had done up until that point, she had worked her ass off to build her family. She had lost 15 pounds. She was exercising regularly. She was doing acupuncture. She was working with me to help balance her emotions and so on and so forth. Tiny little choices that she never gave any credit for, she was making every day to expand her family. But she didn't see any of that because she told herself she wasn't doing enough. Now, we want to believe that the words her family member said created that pain for her. But the truth is, if we had taken out infertility and put something else in, like losing weight or another medical condition, and the family member had asked if she was trying to balance her hormones for that, she would have not had such a strong emotional reaction because the words that someone says to us cannot create our feelings. People can call us a piece of crap, and if you don't believe them, then it doesn't bother you. When her family asked about hormones, she could also have thought, wow, she really cares about us getting pregnant and building our family. Or, equally, an option, chick doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Balancing my hormones won't make my husband's sperm grow or go any faster, or something like that. But my client truly believed that there was no other alternative than this turning it against her, turning it against herself, which is something I think we all do, have done, and yes, will continue to do. But it wasn't until my client and I talked about the other optional thoughts that she could start to see where her judgments about herself was what created that pain, not the actual question that was asked. Okay, so the second example is based on the belief that people shouldn't say certain things. And this comes up a lot in the infertility community and, well, honestly, just like day in, day out interactions with other humans. So this was from another one of my clients where she was having lunch with a few of her girlfriends, all of whom were at kind of different stages in their life. So my client had been married for about 3 years. Another friend was single. Another was married with a very young kiddo, I think still an infant. So all different life stages, right? Now, my client had not been like super open about her and her partner's fertility struggles, but it wasn't exactly like a secret, right? And I think that is the case for a lot of us. And because of quarantine, the friends hadn't really gotten together in a long while. So during the conversation, the question of, so how's the baby making or something like that inevitably comes up, right? As it always seems to. Nosy and obnoxious, sure. But my client said that she was kind of annoyed at the question. But when she started talking about their upcoming IUI cycle, their first one, her friend with the kiddo said, "You're putting too much pressure on it. Just relax, go on vacation, get drunk, and it'll happen." After that, the conversation moved on to something else, and then everyone eventually parted ways and my client went home. In my client's words, she was livid. She said the rest of the day was ruined because she was so pissed off that she couldn't even focus on anything else and just kept replaying in her mind how she wishes she would have responded, which is totally a normal thing. Some of my greatest retorts come along a couple of days later when I'm standing in the shower rehashing the fight. Totally normal. She kept writing and rewriting a tell-off text and seriously considered ending their friendship, which is also totally an option. I'm never going to say to not do something, but I always want people to like their reasons for doing something. So when my client and I spoke, I think it was like 3 or 4 days after this interaction, she described the pain, anger, hurt, and resentment that was even more present than when she first experienced it in that moment when the actual comment was made. So she had carried this around with her for days. This is totally something I would have done too. And so there's no better than now here. But here's the thing. We're going to take the same framework, the think, feel, act cycle that I always use. Her friend said those words, relax, get drunk, go on vacation, right? All of that. And my client's thoughts were, how dare she say that to me? She does not know how offensive something like that is. She never should have said that. Okay, number one, I think this is totally common for all of us, right? Very human reaction. Number two, when her friend said that, my client thought she should never have said that. And when she thought that, the feeling that was created was anger. She also felt resentment, but that was a byproduct of the anger. So she felt angry. And what did she do? She stewed in her anger for days. It occupied so much of her time, energy, and focus. Anger begets anger. The longer you think about how angry you are, the angrier you get. The angrier she was, the more she thought about it. The more she thought about what was said and how much of an injustice it was and how offensive it was. And the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. And for what? For what? Her friend didn't give it another effing thought. Her friend walked away from that lunch or whatever it was and moved on with her life. But my client thought about it for days. And it was based on the thought she shouldn't have said that. She was caught in a thought loop, right? It just kept coming back. She shouldn't have said that. She shouldn't have said that. And breaking out of that thought loop was the work that we did. But she did say it. She said it. Because sometimes people say some stupid ass things. Her telling herself that she shouldn't have said it, which is a BS thought because she did say it. Again, not debating the appropriateness of what was said, but saying it shouldn't have happened when it did happen is kind of just a terrible use of time. It didn't even occur to my client that she had spent an additional 4 days ruminating about a comment that took 1 second to exit the mouth of her friend, Captain Insensitive. Do you know what happened in those 4 days? My client gave all of her emotional and mental bandwidth to that person. Just handed it over like, here you go. You get to be in charge of my feelings and my actions for the next few days. Enjoy. I'm sure this sounds a little bit harsh, but this is what so many of us do on the regular, and it is so incredibly painful for us. Someone says something, and instead of just acknowledging, well, that was a dumbass thing for them to say, and moving on with your life, it's like you bring it with you wherever you go, like doom scrolling in your mind. If you don't know, doom scrolling is when you spend an excessive amount of time on your phone or your screen devoted to finding terrible things, to being outraged, to being offended, to being, well, just pissed off. It's like a dopamine hit of anger that feels like crap. Just stop. Telling yourself someone shouldn't have done or said something when they did or said that thing, it doesn't impact that person in any way. Now, if you feel like you want to tell that person, hey, you said this and I didn't like it because I made that mean that you didn't care about what we were going through or something like that, more power to you. That is you advocating for yourself while taking responsibility for your emotions. But if you're coming from a place of, well, I'm going to tell that person off, or I'm going to tell them how much their words hurt me, you are still giving them your power. Their words cannot hurt you. You are the one hurting you by continuing to fixate on them, by continuing to tell yourself they shouldn't have said that or that shouldn't have happened. If someone says something like, just relax, you could just as easily tell yourself, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and that's okay. Or she thinks she's super helpful. She does care about me, right? It's always an option. But I mean, it's like getting pissed off when someone tells you that you're wearing a green shirt when you're wearing a pink shirt. Telling yourself that they shouldn't have said that you have a green shirt when you're clearly wearing a pink shirt and then carrying that around and continuing to argue with it for hours and days, they are wrong. People can be wrong. People being wrong is not a problem. People are wrong all day, every day. There are a lot of people that walk around in this world being wrong, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. Don't give away your emotional and mental health to people. That's yours, my loves. And one final thing, and I think this might be the most important thing in terms of managing opinions. You are allowed to hold on to your thoughts that you're not doing enough. You can hold on to believing that people shouldn't say things even when they clearly should because they do. You can hold on to the guilt, the anger, the resentment, the frustration. You get to have it all. I'm not ever going to tell you you have to let go of it. I'm never going to tell you you have to change it. It's not my place. What is my place is to remind you that the more you hold on to these things, the more you argue for these things, which I do have people that argue, but Emily, they really shouldn't say these things, right? Here's the thing. If we were girlfriends out having lunch or a coffee shop, I would absolutely agree with you. I would do some serious shit talking myself, not going to lie, but I can't help you from that vantage point. Facebook groups, Instagram, peer support, family, friends. You have plenty of people. Even if you don't think you do, you have plenty of people that will agree with you about the insensitive, obnoxious, and inappropriate things that people say. But when you argue to keep feeling the same way, to hold on to the resentment, to argue with reality, when you do that, my friends, you are fighting for your pain. You are fighting for your limitations. You are fighting for your suffering. That is literally the only prize at the bottom of that particular cereal box. There is no net positive. Now, I'm not saying that when people say things to me, that my first thoughts aren't the exact same thing, because they totally are. Absolutely. Because I am human. But what I know and what I teach all of my clients is by staying there, staying in that anger, staying in that disappointment, staying in that resentment, I am creating my own pain. And that's just not what I want to create for myself. Okay, my beautiful friends, that is what I have for you today. Until next time, I adore you and you have got this. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.